Hello, Virtual English 2 students, and welcome to day 2 of us reading Act 1 of the Crucible. So where we left off on this, actually, let me get the whole thing pulled up instead of just me showing you the packet. I'll actually show you the act in the person, in the flesh, because technically there was nudity earlier, so I guess it is in the flesh. All right, so it's pulled up. We left off on page 1240, and that's where we're going to pick up today. So we left off where Miss Ann Putman enters, and she kind of like establishes like this weird deal that's going on with the Putmans. So the Putmans show up, and it's not like they're not necessarily freaking out. They're like very much like, oh, like there's witchcraft going on. Like the way I compared it for the first or the face-to-face kids was, think of it like this. Like early on in the pandemic, you go over to a friend's house, all of a sudden you get COVID. How do you think your parents are going to feel about the parents of your friend who gave you COVID? They're probably not going to be too happy. So they show up and they just start. It's not like, is there witchcraft? They think they're for 100% sure that there's witchcraft, and it is Betty Paris that is the witch. So they kind of start that off with that. So as Miss Putman comes in and Mr. Putman comes in, we kind of see them have this deal because their daughter is acting just like Betty's acting. We flipped then on to page 1241, and we get to learn what's the deal with Thomas Putman. We learn a little bit more background information on Mr. Thomas Putman and why Paris is kind of uneasy with him. Specifically, we learn that so his brother-in-law, as we can see, wanted Paris's job. So that's why Paris and him don't get along. And we also learn that he is the eldest son of the richest man in town. So the Putman's got that bank, and Putman thinks that he's better than everybody else. Right here, we get some interesting information about Thomas Putman and what he did to the guy that was here before Paris was preacher. And yeah, then we, at the very bottom here, we get Putman resuming the discussion. All right, and then we enter this. And Miss Ann Putman has this crazy story. So Ann Putman has had 8 children. One of them has lived. The other 7 died shortly after birth, or as she would put it, they were murdered. And so she's trying to come down to figure out who it is. And she kind of breaks the rules, but keep in mind, she's rich. So does she have to follow everybody else's rules? And plus, she's breaking a rule to figure out who is murdering her babies. So that's kind of what is going on right here. And I'd highly recommend reading this because it's a little bit of a trip at this particular point. And then we have Mercy Lewis show up. And then we have Mercy Lewis show up. The Putmans keep on trying to convince the Paris, be like, hey, it's okay. You should just admit to having witchcraft and everything will be fine. The town will applaud you. Let's be honest. What is the town probably going to do? Then down here, right here, Miss Putman goes out, and Mrs. Putman goes out, and then we also have Paris go out, and we have Mr. Putman go out. So all right here, all the adults exit. So what do you think's about to happen? All the adults are now gone. Now we're going to find out the truth. All that's left is Abigail, Mercy, and Betty. We're going to find out the truth of what happened. Happened last night. And we get down to one of my favorite things, which is right here. And I'm going to reenact it for you real fast. Have you tried beating her? I gave Ruth a good one, and it waked her up for a minute. Here, let me have at her. Abigail holding Mercy back. No, he'll be coming up. Listen now, if they be questioning us, tell them we danced. I told him as much. And what more? He knows Tituba conjured Ruth's sisters to come out of the grave. And what more? He saw you naked. Oh, Jesus! I always love that part. Mainly because I get to play Mercy Lewis in most classes. All right. Anywho, then Mary Warren enters, and things to keep in mind about Mary Warren is this right here. Her description is she is breathless, so she's out of breath, so she kind of ran there. She's 17, subservient, so she doesn't really try to like be a leader. She kind of is a follower. She's naive, and she's a lonely girl. Lonely girl is the key there. So she's going to kind of let these two girls push her around because she does not want to be. And that's kind of what we see. And Mary Warren tries to be the goody two shoes about it. And then we have this whole thing. So Betty begins to finally wakes up, and she tries to, and Abigail tells her, "Oh, the truth is out, Betty." And Betty freaks out, and so she tries to jump out of the window before she's pulled back in and slap. Silly. And to get her back under her nerves by Abigail. And then Abigail on page 1244, this page right here, Abigail pretty much says, so we get the real story. And then at the very bottom, in fact, right here is where we get the real story about what's going on. And this part right here is a very, very, very important thing to keep in mind. What is mentioned here, especially what's come here in a second. And this last long speech that Abigail here has right here is essentially Abigail going gangster on these girls, saying, "Here's the story we're going to tell everybody, and if you say anything different, here's what's going to happen to you." I recommend reading what she threatened is going to happen to them because it's some gangster stuff. All right, so let's move on. On 1245, and this is where we see John Proctor come into the scene. This is where we see John Proctor arrive. And John Proctor is an interesting character. And right here, kind of in this entire description right here, this exposition about John Proctor gives us a good idea of who he is. And then how he acts right here is pretty interesting, especially considering that, as they pointed out, these two are kind of flirting back and forth. And that's kind of where we left off. We stopped right here today on it. So we stopped at pretty much the bottom of 1245, very top of 1246 is where we ended today. So that's how far we got today. That's kind of that I wanted to point out and wanted to talk about that we pointed out and talked about during class today. That's all I got for you. I'll be back tomorrow with some more information about the Crucible. But until next time, my name has been Paul Davidson, and I have been your English teacher. If you have any questions, please email me at pdavidson@porterville.k12.mo.us. See you later. Wink.